Just a quick note before we start, I'm not going to be going over any advanced or intermediate features in Unreal such as lighting or blueprinting or anything or terrain. I'm just going to be comparing how ideas and techniques in Unity compare to ideas and techniques counterparts in Unreal. Hello again, guys and gals. My female viewership has risen to about 12%. I find that very cool. Anyways, welcome to another video from the team here at blendertech.com. If you enjoy it or learn something from the video, consider liking it and consider subscribing for more Blender, Unity, now Unreal, coding, and all sorts of other CG related videos. Lastly, don't forget our motto, create your way. So I've done it now. I've cancelled my Unity subscription and updated my Unreal subscription. I have 1 month left with Unity. So not only am I saving $55 a month, but I'm slowly finding out just how amazing Unreal Engine 4 is. Blender users, listen on for a minute before you decide whether to watch or not. I don't know if you're interested in game development or not, but Unreal is a pretty interesting thing. It's actually pretty cool how similar it is to Blender in a lot of ways. A quick history lesson, and I mean quick. Months ago when I first sampled Unreal Engine 4 for the first time, I opened it twice. Once to click on all the buttons and see what they did and play the template games, and a second time to record what I called an Unreal 4 versus Unity 4.6 comparison video. That video, well, it brought some interesting arguments to say the least in the comments, did not live up to its name at all. Instead, I'm going to take a new approach. As a new engine refugee, I'm going to post videos describing how I make the switch from Unity to Unreal. These won't be professional videos, I'm just learning, but if you're looking to switch to Unreal from Unity, or you're starting to get curious about all this talk over the internet about this new approach that Epic Games is taking with their Unreal Engine, then this series, this volume of videos may be one of your interests. My last ramble, I promise. I do think I'm going to at some point be starting a separate channel for all my game development and programming videos so it doesn't flood all the people who are just Blender users and just want to see Blender videos posted. So I'm going to be putting all these videos in a separate channel in time, not yet. If you guys think this is a bad idea, and I'm talking to my Blender viewers here, please let me know so that I'm not going to waste time building up a new channel if you guys don't mind seeing all this stuff about game development and programming in my Blender channel. Anyways, on to the actual video now. So today in the first volume, I'm going to show you where to look in Unreal Engine for something that you already may know in Unity, such as components. And I'm going to end the video by importing two basic meshes I created in Blender into Unreal Engine and adding their textures to them. I'm sure you already know how to do this in Unity. I'm going to do it in Unreal as a new user just to see how well it works. So anyways, in the next volume, I'm actually going to go through the UI of Unreal and viewport navigation, what all these buttons up here do, what all these buttons do, all the options we have in here, and we'll get into some more depth as the volumes go on and as I learn more, I should add. So that means in later volumes, as I learn more, I will show you more features in Unreal and how they are either easier or harder than their comparative brothers in Unity. So let's get started. As you can see, I have Unity open in the background with a blank project and Unreal open with a blank project, which I should add, I've chosen with no starter content or templates. It's just a totally blank Unreal project. Now, one thing I am going to mention about the UI though first is the axes. Unity, as you'll see up here, uses a Y up axis. So Y is the up and down direction, whereas Unreal uses a Z up axis. You'll see right there the little axis indicator, just like in Blender in the viewport. They use a Z up approach, so that's very at home for me. If you're a Blender user, that's going to simplify things a lot. Just something to be aware of. I'm not going to go over all the buttons and stuff, but yeah, Unity Y up, Unreal Z up. So just something to keep in your brain departments. As I said before, this is going to be a proper video comparing the two engines by using the I'm switching from Unity to Unreal approach. One last note, I am learning Unreal still as I go, so if I say something wrong or do something wrong, please correct any mistakes in the comments for not only my knowledge but for others' knowledge. Now that I've rambled on for much longer than I intend to as usual, let's start off with what I consider to be the primary focus of any game, assets. So in Unity, your assets are in the assets folder under the project tab. So you might go and in your assets folder you might create a new folder. You might call one folder scripts. You might create another folder called materials. You might create another folder called audio, and so on and so forth. Very easy. It's a good way to organize your project. Unreal, extremely similar. We have the same thing as the project viewer, except it's just called the content browser. So it makes sense. You're browsing content. I'm going to get rid of this. Click on the little icon for a tour of the tools. This icon's all over Unreal 4 since it's a new engine, and it shows you a bunch of information on different features in Unreal, but I'm just going to ignore it for now, even though that is very distracting. Now I need to expand the Unreal editor when I go into it, because one thing about Unreal that I'm not liking so far is it's very, very squished. These buttons up here, A, they're huge, B, they should probably be put into menus up here. These buttons are huge. Right here, you're adding all your different actors and such are huge and could probably be put into a menu. The outliner is decent and the details is decent and the content browser is decent, but the buttons are just huge. It takes up so much screen real estate. Now, just like in Unity, you can resize things by clicking and dragging here, and you can also grab a tab from a window and you can make it a, let's see here, it's a little bit touchy I found, but you can turn it into a, if I'm careful enough here, you can turn it into a floating window. So that's kind of cool. So I can throw things on another monitor because I'm working with two monitors plus a TV. Anyways, and then you can also dock it anywhere you want. So I can dock it alongside here. Again, it's kind of finicky. I can put it back where it was. Again, it's kind of finicky. Let's see if I can get it in there. So yeah, you can reorganize your layout exactly as you want it. I haven't found a way to save layouts yet, but I'm sure I'm wrong about that. I just haven't gotten there yet. You know what, right there's reset layout, save layout. There you go. I just learned something, and something for you guys to be aware of. You can save layouts in Unreal Engine once you've set up one you like, just the same as in Unity when you go to layouts and you can save or delete a layout. For example, if we click on default, I am in the default layout. So kind of cool. They're very similar that way. As I was talking about though, the project tab in Unity where you hold all your assets, everything in your game, sounds, models, textures, code, whatever. Very, very similar, or if not identical in Unreal. You have the content browser. So content is essentially your assets folder. So under the content folder, I can make a new asset, and I can import an asset. I can create a blueprint class, which is using nodes to create scripts. I can create a new level. I can create a new material particle system or animation, more blueprints, materials and texture, sounds, physics, UI, miscellaneous. So this works the exact same way as in Unity. You right click and you can create a new asset. As well, you can also make a new folder. So I can do the exact same thing. I can go materials, audio, scripts, blueprints, and as you can see, if I make this smaller, extremely similar. So really the only way this would be different is I've noticed people that use Unreal and never have used Unity, they use a really odd to me anyway, naming convention. However, you're free to use whatever naming convention you want in Unreal, same as in Unity. Next, I want to talk about We'll go back to Unity here. I'm going to select the main camera. The one thing that it does create when you create a blank project, we have the hierarchy window, which lists all the objects in your game. So if I was to add a bunch of cubes, so I've got 2 cubes separated by roughly about by their own distance. One thing to note, there's no snapping ability built into Unity, but I've got 2 cubes roughly separated by their own distance. And so you can see I've got a hierarchy window that lists all the assets in my scene, my camera and my 2 cubes. Now each asset has its own components. So my camera has the transform component, a camera component, an audio listener component. My cube, it has a mesh filter component, a collider component, a renderer component. What I'm trying to say is each asset has components. And in Unity, when you want to add a component, you either drag and drop it. So let's say I had a script that was called rotate when clicked. Let's say that was my script. I would just drag and drop it on, drag and drop it on top of the asset in the viewport or in the hierarchy window. And then, well, I'll just do it for example. So I'm going to drop it onto my camera. My camera now has the rotate when clicked component added to it. Or you can go add component and you can search for it. So I can search rotate, and there's rotate when clicked, so I can add it again. I can right click and remove component, etc. So how does that compare to Unreal Engine 4? Well, it's very, very similar. Now, before I go on, I want to say before version 4.7, I am using 4.7, by the way, that just came out a day ago. Before 4.7, they didn't really have a component system. They didn't have empty actors. Now they do have a component system. I haven't quite figured it out, but as far as I know, yes, you have an add a new component to this actor. So I can add audio particle system, I can add physics stuff, I can add all the stuff you see here, and I can also make my own component. So this would be similar to making a script and adding it to your asset. So essentially the world outliner is your hierarchy window, and then the details tab is your outliner. And I'm saying that from the Unity view. So if we if we make this smaller for a second, what I consider the hierarchy window in Unity that lists all the objects in your scene, I compare to the world outliner in Unreal. And now when you select an asset in Unity, it brings it up in the inspector window where you can add components. And so when I select a object, an asset in the world outliner in Unreal, it comes up in the details window where I can add a component. Very similar, and we have similar components, if you want to call them that, which they are calling them that for now. We have transform, location, rotation, scale, and a bunch of different ones that are of course unique to Unreal, but rendering, tags. So a tag here works exactly the same way as a tag in Unity. And so how I understand this is an actor is basically, an actor is the base class for an object that can be placed or spawned in a level. Actors may contain a collection of actor components which can be used to control how actors move, how they are rendered, etc. The main function of an actor is the replication of properties and functions called across the network during play. So if I was to take an empty actor, which is brand new for 4.7 by the way, and drag and drop it into this level, as you can see I now have actor, which is just empty. All it has is a transform, rendering, input, and an actor component. If I go back to Unity, I think that would be similar to if I was to go and add an empty. So it's just an empty object, and in Unity it has just a transform component by stock, but I can add components. I can add my script. I can add whatever I want. I can add a box collider to it if I really want. Now things can collide with it. So that's kind of how I understand actors. I'm not 100% on that yet because it's still brand new to me, but that's my basic understanding of it so far. Again, if I'm wrong, please let me know. So if I want to delete this, all I do is select it and hit delete on my keyboard. Very, very cool. Another thing I want to add is in Unity, when I added the cube, so I'm going to add another one right now. I'm going to add a cube. We move it wherever we want, but it gets added by default at the origin 000, and I move it with the widgets. Just like usual. I'm sure you're all aware of that. However, in Unity, it's a little bit different, but I find a lot cooler. So what I'm going to add is I'm going to add just a basic cube, a static mesh actor. So just a static cube. So I'm going to click and drag. So it's exactly the same as in Unity. But notice how it snaps to wherever I want. I can place it wherever I want, and it snaps right onto your level floor here, just like that. I can reset it to the origin 000, wherever that might be, right there. So that would be the exact same thing, and I can move it with the widgets, which are extremely hard to see through that, but once I get it above, it's easier to see. Now, one thing that I think is very cool about Unreal is the snapping. Notice when I grab it up, it's grabbing in increments, and I can adjust this with the buttons up here. I'm not going to go into the next volume, but yeah, it's got snapping, which I absolutely love, which you can turn on and off at will. If I added another cube, they snap to each other essentially. It's not a perfect system. The videos I watched, they were snapping like directly on top of each other, so I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing yet. But yeah, so you can place it wherever you want, and gizmos are exactly the same, and they work essentially exactly the same way. Another cool thing in Unity, when you select an object, so I've got this cube here selected, we press W to translate it, so to move it. We press E to rotate it. And I find the rotating gizmos to be a little bit finicky in Unity, so that's how I like to type in the values myself. And we use R to scale it. We use global and local button right here to choose our global or local if we want to move it in global space or local space. Now in Unreal, it is extremely, actually I wanted to mention this because it is exactly the same. So let me get rid of some of these things. So I just got my one cube here. So we press W to move it. We use our gizmos just like that. We use E to rotate it. Now what I like is I think that their rotation gizmo is much easier to use. You can visualize how it's going to rotate. Okay, this is going to rotate it that way. This is going to rotate it this way. This is going to rotate it this way. And when I click to rotate it, I like how it shows you exactly which axis it's rotating on, so which way it's rotating, and I like how it shows you how many degrees it's rotating, and it has a nice little visual scale. I think that's just great. Now I know there are probably add-ons that do this in Unity, but the thing I thought about when I canceled my Unity subscription was, and I watched some Unreal videos, was, okay, Unreal, great. Unity, also great. However, to get the amount of features that come with Unreal in Unity, I would have to spend probably $1,000 to $2,000 in assets from the asset store and import them to my project every single time, delete the stuff I don't need, etc, etc, etc. Unreal comes with thousands of dollars worth of equivalent Unity things. So just something that I wanted to add. Anyway, so yeah, we use W to translate, E to rotate, R to scale. And it works the same way. You scale just like this. Now, Unreal has this other cool thing notice how I can select 2 axes at the same time. So right now, it'd be easier if I do the translation. So I can translate it Z, X, Y. I'm gonna bring it so that I can see this a little better. I don't know why this gizmo is kind of transparent like this. I still haven't figured this out 100%. And by the way, this is the global, local. Global is the globe, local is just a cube. So anyways, what I think is very cool that Unreal has come up with, and like I said, I'm sure there's an add-on on the Unity Asset Store, but like I said, I can move it in 1 axis, but if I hold my mouse in these corners of this little area here, I can move it in 2 axes at once. So as you see, if I grab right there, I can move it along only the X and Y. So you can see I can move it along the Y and the X at the same time, but not the Z. So I could move it horizontally, but not vertically. So horizontally in any direction, but not vertically. Very cool. And at the same time, I could go this way and I can go up vertically, down vertically, and forward and back in the Y direction, but I can't go side to side in the X. So I think that's just great. That's something that should have been thought of ages ago, and it works the same for not rotation, I don't believe, because that wouldn't make sense, but it works the same way for scaling. I can scale it in 2 axes or just 1, and then again, if I rotate it to some degree, I can click into object mode, and then it moves to its own object space instead of world space. But I'm going to get into that more in the next volume when we go over the UI and viewport navigation. So yeah, we've gone over the comparison of asset layout, I guess you could call it, the project versus the content browser. We've gone over the hierarchy and inspector window in Unity versus the world outliner and the details. We've gone over components, and we've gone over just basic manipulation of objects in 3D space in Unreal versus Unity. I'm going to, what else? I wanted to compare. In Unity, we have the asset store. So I just go to the asset store, it opens up the window, and I am free to browse the asset store all that I want. The thousands and thousands of things in the asset store. That is the one thing Unity does have going for it, is that it has the age of assets. So it's got so many assets, it's not even funny. Unreal, being that it's so new, has very, 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 very little in its marketplace. It's not the asset store, it's the marketplace. But same deal, I click it and it should open. It opens it in the launcher. And so yeah, a little bit different, and I'm sure they'll work on it in time and integrate it into the editor instead of a separate program. This is the Unreal Engine launcher, but yeah, it's similar. You have assets that you can buy. There's some free ones, and then they get imported into your project. So that's another thing that's similar. Other than that, when you decide you want to test your game in Unity, all you do is hit play, and it brings you into the game view if it's on another tab. I can also take that tab and drag it somewhere. This goes back to setting up layouts. I can hit play, and it brings up the game view. Of course, nothing's happening here because we just have cubes in space. Anyways, in Unreal Engine, it's exactly the same. We just hit play, and it brings up our scene. Now what's kind of cool is by default it allows you to look around and to move using WASD and clicking, so you can move around your level without having to add scripts to your camera. So I find that kind of cool. So that is the basics of what you will find in Unity and where the exact same things would be found or called in Unreal. There's a lot more things to this. There's settings. We have so many settings, it's not even funny. There's crazy amount of settings compared to Unity, but we'll get into that in a much later video. For now, I'm going to learn more about the engine, but as I said in the beginning, I am going to see exactly how Unreal works for importing assets compared to Unity. So in Unity, it's very easy. We either drag or drop our assets into our project, our assets folder, or we go right click and import new asset. It works exactly the same way in Unreal. You either drag and drop them, or you go right click and import to /game, import asset. So I'm going to do it in Unity first. I'm going to do it quickly because I'm sure you guys have all seen this. So I've got my models folder. I'm going to go right click, import new asset. I made two meshes in Blender. I made two pipe joints essentially. I made a straight piece of pipe and a T-joint. And then I just gave them basic rusty metal textures. This is the one here for the straight pipe. That's the one for the curved pipe and their respective UVs, which aren't going to be used. So in Unity, I'm going to import both of these assets. You'll see it creates the materials folder automatically. Now, when we import a model into Unity, it allows us to have all these options. We can import rig, we can import animations, and based on that, it gives us our model prefab. So right now it's just a basic object. It's got a renderer, a transform, and a mesh filter. Very basic, and I'm not using animations, so yeah, it's as simple as that. Same with the T-joint. I'm going to turn off the animation since there's no animation data. I'm going to apply that. So we should be good to go. So in Unity, once we've imported something, while I'm at it, I might as well import my textures. So I'm going to import the diffuse texture for the straight joint, and I'm going to import the diffuse texture for the T-joint. So in Unity, I would just drag and drop my T-joint in. As you can see, it's very small. Here's one more thing I want to mention. In Unity, when you click on an object in any way, an asset, and you press F to focus, it brings it right into your view in the viewport. In Unreal, it's exactly the same. I select something, so I've got both of my models imported into Unity. I'm going to drag and drop them into my scene. Now they're untextured. Now in Unity, I need to create a material for each of these. So it's created one stock material that they're both sharing. So I am going to instead create a second. Well, I'm gonna rename this one. I'm gonna call this one straight .math for material. That's my naming convention. Then I'm gonna create a new material, which I'm gonna call T.matte. So they're both diffused since I don't have any other texture maps that I created for this little video. The T-joint, I'm going to drag and drop T onto it. And the straight joint is going to get straight onto it, although it already has it. So it's got straight.matte as its material with a diffuse shader. And the T-joint has T.material. So for the T, I'm going to open my texture. I'm going to select my texture, the T-joint. And it's now textured. Perfect. Just the way I intended. And for the straight joint, I'm going to do the same thing. I guess I can show you in Unity. Obviously, you can also just drag and drop the straight into the texture slot. So there we go. I have now got my straight pipe joint and my T pipe joint in Unity with simple diffuse shader materials. Very simple. They're ready to go. I can use them in the game. I can duplicate them. Essentially, my idea behind this was I could create an entire pipe system. So there you have it. That's how you would do it in Unity, more or less. So let's compare this to Unreal. This is going to be my first official, I don't want to call it a learning experience, but my first creation in Unreal. So I'm going to try to duplicate this and see if it's easier or harder than Unity. Of course, I have experience in Unity. So anyways, I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to call this models, just like I did in Unity. In models, I'm going to right click and import. I'm going to select the same models. I can import them both at once. There's a plus for Unreal right there. I don't have to do them one at a time. Of course, you can drag and drop multiple files in both of them, but I'm going to import both of those, and it's detected that I'm trying to, must be because I'm recording. It's detected that I'm trying to import a mesh. It's got no regs, so it doesn't, I'm not going to import it as a skeleton. Auto generate collisions. I'm not going to use custom collisions on this, so I'm going to have it generate a collider. The transform, it's fine just how it is. I'm going to leave it at 000 with no rotation, and the import scale I'm going to leave as 1. I'm not going to import materials. I'm not going to import textures. Actually, I'll check off import materials because that's what I did in Unity. Miscellaneous doesn't really do anything. Show advanced, import normal maps. I have no normal maps. Show advanced. I have no LODs, blah, blah, blah. None of these generate light map UVs. None of these. Oh, normal import normals. I'm gonna go import normals because my normals were perfectly fine in Blender. Combine meshes. Combines all meshes into a single mesh. Well, I only have one object in each file, so that doesn't really matter. So we'll go import. Notice since I have multiple objects that I'm importing at once, I can use the same setting for both, for all files that I'm importing. So I'm going to import both of these using these settings. So that's a very cool thing that Unreal also has. So I'm going to import all. So I should have my straight joint and my chi joint. I get a warning. No smoothing group information was found. So I'll have to look into that. I've heard that there's issues using Blender and Unreal, and so I haven't looked into this yet. So we'll see exactly what's going on, if it's going to work or not. So let's first try dragging and dropping it into our scene. I'm going to focus on it. It's so small from Blender stock settings, I can't even focus on it. So there's one negative for Unreal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it. So I'm going to scale it, say 10 times. There, that's a little bit easier. So there we go. It just has its base Unreal standard diffuse texture, the same as in Unity. It's just gray with a checker pattern versus white in Unity. I'm going to import my T-joint, same deal. I'm going to scale it by 10, and I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to move it over here so that we can see them together. I love the lighting in Unreal. It's just so much better. Anyways, alright, there we go. So we have them imported, but we don't have materials or textures on them. So let's see, how would we do that? Well, with our T-joint selected right here, it's got the name T-joint just like it would in Unity. We have our static mesh, just like we would in Unity. We have materials, and we can add multiple ones. So okay, I have world grid material, and I can choose different textures. So this makes me think that I probably need to create a new material. So under my materials folder, I'm going to right click, and perfect, a basic asset is material. So I'm going to create a material called T, just like we did in Unity, and I'm going to create a new material called straight, just like we did in Unity. Now this is where things get a little bit different, I think. With these materials, I double click on them, I believe. Yeah, and it brings me into the material editor. You can see it's tabbed. I have my game editor tab up here, and I have my material editor tab up here. Now this is where I'm absolutely loving Unreal Engine. The way creating materials like this is so cool. It's just like Blender, for one, so I'm right at home, and B, look at all the options you have for your materials. There's got to be at least 100 of them. So instead of writing complex shaders, and in Unity you have to put certain maps in the alpha channel, and it's, I think Unity's material and shader system and texture system is just terrible. Unreal's is so much better and very easy to use. So base color is what they consider their diffuse. So I need a base color texture. So first, I guess I need to import my textures. So I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this textures. I learned this from my first course I watched on Unreal 4 engine. So I'm going to import to game/textures, and I'm going to import both of the diffuse textures. So it's importing them. It is a little bit slower than Unity. I'll give Unity that. Unity imports stuff just like that usually. So all right, it says it knows that it's a texture. It says its dimensions, has an alpha channel, yes, wraparound mode, like blah 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 blah. And this is all edible, I'm sure. If I double clicked on it, I'm sure I would get some sort of, yeah, I get a material editor, so I can change my different settings here. You can see how everything's wrapping, whereas I'm sure I could change that somewhere. Anyways, doesn't matter. We just want to get the same thing. So now I think if this works exactly the same as I learned from the videos, we are working on the straight material. So I'm going to select the straight texture. So I have it selected in my editor window. I'm going to go into the material tab. I'm going to press T. No, okay, that's not working. That's what I was taught to do. Select T. Okay, apparently that's not going to work because it says the hotkey right here is T. Okay, now it's doing something. Anyway, so yeah, T for texture sample. So I'll just drag and drop it. Oh, okay, there we go. It worked. So that's the exact one I wanted, I'm pretty sure. Double click on it. Yep, this one right here. So all I do is I connect the output white to white, and it gives me a preview of what it should look like. So let's see if it works. I will need to apply this material now. So I'm going to choose material straight. And does it need to recalculate it, or did I just do something wrong? Let's see if I can figure out what it is. So I've got my straight joint. It's got my straight material, but it's not showing me my previews properly. It's not showing up here either. Oh, maybe I need to save it. So let's save. That would probably make sense. So saving asset, game/material/straight. We can see it's updated in the window now, and we can see it's updated in the viewport. Now, have the UVs been applied properly? I don't know for sure, because for one, this one right here is getting in the way. It's creating shadow, and there we go. It's a little easier to see. I don't know for sure because I just quickly textured this, but that looks extremely similar as in Unity, so I'm assuming that it's working just fine. So I'm sure once I did this, say 5-10 times, I would be just as fluid as in Unity. So let's do the same thing for the T so I can show you how cool it is again. So I'm going to edit my T material. My straight I'm done with, so I can just close that. I'm going to edit my T material by double clicking. I need a base color, so I'm going to go into my textures folder. I'm going to select the T joint underscore diffuse texture. Now you should be able to press T. T is the hotkey. I don't know why that's not working. In the lesson I watched, he just had it selected and then pressed T in this window. I'll have to do a little bit more research because when I drag and drop this, it brings it in no problem. Anyways, so yeah, same deal. We just connect white to white, and we can separate the red, green, and blue and alpha channels. That's what these stand for, and we can do things to them. So for example, I was showing how, oh, where was it? I wouldn't even know because I'm not totally, I'm brand new to this. But basically he showed how you can take something and, where is it? I would assume, oh yeah, you can do a lerp. So I can lerp, say, the red channel to some value, let's use the value of pi, and plug it into B, and then we can use that output as the base color instead. Now it's going to give us some funky color. Yeah, the red channel times pi gives us who knows what result. Pure white, apparently. Can you delete? Can you delete strings here? Node connections? I'm not sure on that yet either. In Blender, you just go Control and then you click and drag through. But I'm not sure yet. But we'll try green. Still white. Let's try that. Well, we get something interesting there, but just to show you how it's a node-based system, which is so easy to use. It reminds me so much of Blender. That's really one of the major factors that made me decide to make the engine switch. So yeah, anyways, just as we did in Unity, we set up our textures. So I'm going to save this. My base color, my diffuse color is my texture. Now we're going to select our T-joint in the outliner, aka the hierarchy. We're going to go into the detail window, aka the outliner. And the material, I'm going to choose T. And there you go. It is textured. Still getting the viewport navigation down. It is textured perfectly as far as I know. So that makes me very happy because I was really worried that Blender wasn't gonna, Blender's FPX, exporter wasn't gonna work with Unreal, but it seems to be working just fine. It's a little bit harder to tell because of the global illumination, but I was showing that we can just click this button and go unlit, and it shows us a completely unlit world. So I gotta turn my camera speed down. I'm zooming into these places, so I'm not seeing. Okay, it looks like there may be a UV error in here. I don't believe I created it with a seam there. We'll have to go into Unity in a second to compare that. Let's look at the T-joint. Looks okay. Let's go into Unity to compare. So in Unity, let's see if that seam exists. Oh yeah, okay, so that seam is there. Remember, I have two of these, so I'm going to drag it up. So in Unity, that seam was there. I didn't create this texture 100% perfectly. Basically, I just pasted a metal texture over the entire UVs. So that is showing that it's working exactly the same in Unity as it is in Unreal from Blender. Now, of course, they suggest you use Maya to create your meshes for use in Unreal, but apparently Blender works just fine in 4.7, so that makes me very happy. So anyways, this has gone on very long because it's basically, this is one of my first attempts at getting something into the engine and doing something with it. So let me know if I've made any mistakes. Maybe if you guys can give me some more details on exactly how an actor compares to something in Unity, that would be a great help for me and for other people, I'm sure. That's the one thing that's confusing. What exactly is an actor? And in the next volume, we'll go through basic UI navigation. We'll go through all the different UI buttons, the major ones, and we will go through, yeah, that's really about it. And then I'll just keep creating videos as I learn stuff, showing you how I've made the switch to this engine. I will be making a video sooner, however. I'm not going to call it a volume, I'm just going to kind of call it a sub-volume, because a fellow forum member wanted to see how the pipeline process of importing an asset into Unreal is versus Unity, and then adding on a script to make it rotate around. In this case it'd be a Z-axis to make it rotate. Basically, how is the pipeline in Unreal compared to Unity? He wanted a video on that, so I'm going to make a short video showing exactly what we did today, importing a mesh, applying a material, and then I'm going to make a blueprint to make it rotate around its Z-axis and apply that. So as I learn more, I will be creating more videos. This was just kind of an intro to compare the two, and yeah, that is about it for now. So thanks for watching this very long video from the team here at blendertech.com. If you're thinking about switching from Unity to Unreal, hopefully this has helped you sway your decision one way or the other. If you enjoyed this video and learned something about, I guess you can't really learn anything too much, maybe you learned something about Unreal, maybe you learned something about Unity. Anyways, if you liked it, basically consider liking the video, and don't forget to consider subscribing for more videos. We're now on Twitter at twitter.com/blender_tech. That's at blender_tech, and Facebook at facebook.com/blendertechpage, all one word. If you dislike this video for some reason, instead of just leaving with a thumbs down, instead please leave us a comment or email us if it's private at info@blendertech.com about what you did not like, so we can continually improve our videos based on your community input. So that is all for now, and I will leave you guys off to remember, create your way.